All right, y'all. We are live up on this live stream. Now I'm on Facebook and YouTube, and now I have to get my Instagram going. So hold on. Got to make sure that's live. There we go. Okay. So what? Oh Lord, my clock's coming through the background. There we go. All right. Now what I'm going to talk about today is not what you think I'm going to talk about. Now there are some other things that happen in comic book world that I want to talk about, but I don't quite have enough information yet because I want to talk about Sadie Sink and who she might be playing in the new Spider-Man movie, but I don't have enough information yet. And there's a few other things that happened this week, but that was one of the biggest things that I saw jump out. But I don't have enough information yet to comment on that. What I am going to talk about is how Snow White is just a symptom. That's literally the biggest thing that happened among all fandoms this week was the Snow White movie finally dropping, and more than anything else, the embargo against reviews being lifted. Okay, that's what happened this week, and that's what kind of took a hold of everybody, and that's what it captured everybody's attention. And it's really, really funny. That's why I want to talk about it, because it's kind of across the board. In other words, no matter what type of primary material you're into, people got captivated by this Snow White thing. And so that's why I wanted to talk about it, because I stopped by to tell you that it's just a symptom. It is not actually the problem. I'm going to say that one more time. This whole Snow White thing is just a symptom. It is not actually the problem. Okay. And so I know people have been attacking it. I know people have been reviewing it. I am going to talk about it, but only as it serves as a springboard into the larger context of what I'm trying to say, because I'm going to identify for you today, once and for all, what the actual problems are, because the things we've been experiencing are just a symptom. They're not actually the problem. Okay? All right. So, first and foremost, no, I didn't see the film. So I know some people are going to say that doesn't give me a right to criticize it or whatever. I watched plenty of videos. I watched plenty of people's reactions. I've heard from people that did watch it. I've heard from people I follow on YouTube all the time. I've gotten a consensus from many different sources, from different articles, from Twitter posts, from different videos, because just to let you know my stand on it, I refuse to see the film. I will not see this film. This film does not get my money or my time or my attention in that sense, in terms of me sitting in a theater for a couple hours and taking time out of my day to write. No, not going to happen. But I am responding, just like people do reaction videos. I am responding to everything that I've heard. I am responding to everything that I've heard. And from everyone that I listen to on a regular basis and everybody I've heard, and except for that, those first articles where everybody was just praising it and lavishing it, and she was, Rachel Zegler was a revelation, and she's on fire, she's a starburst, she's, a revolution, she's a revelation, blah, 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 blah. Okay, those are what we call shills. Those are what we call people that are paid to promote and advertise and say your project and your product is great, whether it actually is or not. Those are the things that got dropped first. And those things that are dropped first is to begin to sway public opinion in favor of the film. So you heard me say it last week. Okay. Al's in my comments. I was like, I was gushing over the movie. Can't believe said his favorite edition ever. Nope, just kidding. So that's right. So all the shill reviews are what we saw first, and that's all designed to begin to sway public opinion in favor of the film. But remember, I said it last time. Always remember that just because people think you're stupid doesn't mean you're actually stupid. So they think if they have enough high-powered critics or paid critics, or they're really shills, people that say that everything they do is great, regardless of whether it's great or not, if they have enough people say that up front, then that's going to sway public opinion. But the box office numbers on this film are saying different. Just like with Captain America, Brave New World, they did the same thing. They did the same thing. They released a bunch of reactions before the embargo was lifted on actual reviews and started talking about how Captain America Brave New World was just the best thing ever and everybody loves Sam Wilson as Captain America and blah, 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 before the real reviews kicked in. Anybody that reads the comics knows that Sam Wilson as Captain America has never worked in the comics. Okay, Alice saying, I know 2 unpaid critics that were surprised that they enjoyed the film. Not for me, but not all of them are paid. Good point, good counterpoint. But when you have people that are always saying that a particular company's content is good, whether it is or not, then they don't understand that that dilutes the authenticity of their feedback. If we know that you're going to say that it's good or not, whether it's objectively good or not, then that kind of dilutes what you're saying. And so they will always trot out those who only have glowing things to say before the official embargo is lifted, before actual reviews can come in. Why is that? Why would they do that if it's objectively good? Because they want to begin to sway your opinion. So, like I said, in reacting to everything that I've seen people say, the best and most redeeming feature of this film is that Rachel Zegler has a great singing voice. That's about the only thing anyone has been able to find in terms of good things to say about this film. Now, if they had this to do again, what they should have done is they should have led with that. So they had an opening in Spain because they changed the opening here so that no actual reporters, could get to Rachel Zegler. So they wouldn't give her a chance to put her foot in her mouth. And again, we're going to talk about that in a minute. So they had an opening in Spain. And what she did in Spain was she sang one of the songs. And she did really, really well. And then there were a lot of children, a lot of girls, and a few boys, actually, that may have been dressed in a Prince Charming costume. Next roommate, Nemesis should be Snow White. He's a mutual friend of ours. Yeah, we can see that. We can definitely see that happening. So, open in Spain, she sang the song, a lot of little girls, but that was staged. Because how do you get a whole bunch of kids together and they're all wearing that same costume? Is that random? Like, does that happen every day? So that was kind of staged. But if they had to do this again, they should have led with her singing voice, and that's it. They should have let her sing to the kids, let the kids sing along with her. Everyone could have, because that's her strongest feature. Everyone could have heard how good she sounds, and that's it. And everyone could have seen the little kids vibing with what she was doing as Snow White. That would have changed everything. So just note to the self, for the future, that would have been the way to go, because this movie has become a cautionary tale. This movie has become the embodiment of all the stuff I'm going to talk about today. Sometimes what happens in life, and I know it's not fair, but there's no such thing as fairness. Just for the record, fairness is not real. Fairness is a human concept. Fairness is something that people made up. There's actually no such thing as fairness in life. It doesn't exist. So, but just for future reference, this is how they should have done it. They should have led with her strength, which is that singing voice, not have anything to do with commentary, but they didn't know. But this movie has now become. So what happens in life, the reason I brought up fairness is sometimes in life, a person or a product becomes the face of a movement, or it becomes the face of backlash, or it becomes the face of, if things have been building up in society or fandoms or a particular customer market, if tensions have been building for a while and then something happens that pops the lid on all that tension, that thing that happened will become the face of it. And I know people are going to say that that's not fair. That's why I told you there's no such thing as fairness. Excuse me, no such thing as fairness. It doesn't exist. Like, for example, when all that stuff broke with Harvey Weinstein, that wasn't the first time, that wasn't the only time, and that wasn't the last time there were, deals made because in exchange for sexual favors or whatever. That's not the only time that happened, and he's not the only person that did that. But when that whole thing blew up, he became the face of it. You understand? When you become the face of something, when you become the face of a movement or anything like that, there's going to be a pile-on effect. There's going to be a pile-on effect. And what that means is that all of the tension, all of the frustration, all of the negative feelings that people have been feeling and carrying for a long time, they're now going to focus on you, on that person, and or that product. That's what happens when you become the face of a thing. And this movie and this young lady behind me has now become the face of it. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand. I'm going to talk about exactly what I mean by that, but this movie is the face of it now. Okay? And there's no way around that. So that's the first thing I want to point out, is that putting it on the screen now. First thing I want to point out is that this is her legacy. I know you're not going to like that. I know the defenders are going to go crazy. I know some people are going to say, well, that's not fair. I keep telling you, ain't no such thing as fairness. This is her legacy now. This is her legacy and the legacy of this movie. There is no way around it. There's no way around it. Okay? Daisy Ridley is finding out the same thing, and it's clearly it's not her fault because the Ray character is not her idea. She's an actor playing a role, saying the lines that she was told to say. But because everything kind of came to a head around that, Ray is not a face of bad Star Wars. And Daisy Ridley's face is Ray's face. She's not going to be able to get away from it now. Now, it's possible that she can do a different turn in a different movie or a different acting role, and it breaks her free from that old role, because most actors never break free from the role, excuse me, that made them famous. Some do. Many do not. But what happened with this child behind me in this movie is now, this is her legacy. This is her legacy for the rest of her life. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand. For the rest of her life, it doesn't matter what else she does from this point. In every interview, every book, every film, everything that she does, every article that's ever going to be written about her for the rest of her life, this film, this role, and her comments about it are her legacy now. Why is that so important? It's so important because I've discovered a lot of people don't get that. When you play a high stakes game, you get high stakes consequences. When you play a game that's on a world stage, you get world level consequences. And that's what she has now. She's become the face of the annoying girl boss trope. She's become the face of someone thinking that classic or old fashioned, or you want to say it, stuff is dated and it needs to be modernized, meaning it needs to be girl bossed up. She's the face of that now, and so is this movie. Okay, this is her legacy. There's no way around that now. So let me look at some of the technical points as to why the movie doesn't work, just from what I've seen, just from the reviews I've seen, and just from the clips I've seen. First thing that jumped out to me, okay, is the color palette on this movie is a little bit oversaturated. Now, I know maybe that's the effect that they were going for, maybe to give it that otherworldly, magical fairy tale feeling, but it doesn't work for me. It feels oversaturated. And when you feel that the colors that are coming at you are too saturated, it has a funny effect on your brain because your mind begins to reject it. That's why a lot of people have said they got headaches when they were watching this movie. That's one of the maybe unspoken reasons. Because if the colors are too rich, your brain knows what colors look like in real life, and your brain knows what colors are like when they're out of proportion. Like a movie that did it well was The Matrix. Because if you didn't notice, you should know by now, but if you ever watched The Matrix, when they're in The Matrix, everything is green tinted, except it's a subtle green tint. Everything when they're in the real world is blue and gray tinted, except it's a subtle blue and gray tint. Your brain can handle stuff like that, but when movie colors are just constantly oversaturated, your mind begins to reject it if you didn't know that. So, technical reason number one. Number two, they said that the musical number, now I listened to Chris Gore and a bunch of people, they said the musical numbers are not catchy and nobody claps at the end of them. Well, then your musical has failed. See, the whole idea of a musical, but especially a movie musical, is that you walk away singing the songs, that you can't get the songs out of your head. If you have created something and people are singing it, over and over and over again, and the stuff isn't so catchy that you can't get it out of your head, then you have failed, because that is the point of a musical and a movie musical. Also, they said she cut out Someday My Prince Will Come, and they changed Whistle While You Work. Now, if you know anything about Snow White, Someday My Prince Will Come and Whistle While You Work are the signature songs. They're the signature songs of the movie. We still, we still sing Whistle While You Work to this day. That catchphrase has become a part of the lexicon of people and it's never gone away. That don't tell you nothing? See, when I really get into it, because I'm not deep into it yet, I'm still talking about technical reasons. When I really get into this, you'll see more of what I mean. We still sing and say Whistle While You Work to this day. That don't tell you nothing? Okay, is there anything musically from this movie that you walked away from with that same feeling? So they got rid of Someday My Prince Will Come and changed it to Waiting on a Wish or Waiting on a Dream or whatever. They girl bossed it. And then they changed Whistle While You Work. That's a fundamental misunderstanding of what musicals are about, and a fundamental misunderstanding about what you want to keep and get rid of. When you're working on an already established property, you got to know which things to keep and which things to get rid of. Okay, that's technical reason number two. Technical reason number three is there's quote unquote a love story, but it's not traditional. The core of Snow White as a character and a concept is that love story. So how, it's the ship of Theseus. How many elements can you take away from the core and it still be the same story? So you can't take away that idea, and it's still, the movie and the story still holds up the same integrity. And I say stuff like this because I want content creators to pay attention to stuff like that. One of the things that I'm always trying to do is I'm always trying to watch and learn. And one of the things I always tell my son to do is watch and learn. So I'm trying to watch and learn. Who knows what life might drop in my hands one day, and I want to learn from the stuff that I'm seeing in others, because it's always easier to see it with other people than it is for yourself. You can't take away the core. See, I know that people think you can, but you can't. You can't take away the core of what makes something great, or what makes something work, and what makes it memorable, and then still think it's the same thing. That's the ship of Theseus. You can't replace every plank of wood and every sail and every mast and all that and then think it's the same ship. No, it's not. Okay, next technical reason this movie wasn't good. Now, I know this is a non-issue for some people, and I know this is a big issue for some people, which is also typical of the kind of climate we're in today. But a lot of people were upset that they had not necessarily a Latina playing Snow White, but someone that wasn't a good visual translation of the character, because the character's definition is the reason she's called Snow White is because her skin is as white as snow. Her hair is jet black, and she's got ruby red lips. So may not necessarily be because it was a Latina, maybe more so because she's not a good visual translation of the character. But for some reason I haven't figured out yet, and y'all in the comments help me out. For some reason I haven't figured out yet, people think that's not important. Yeah. Do you want, remember they tried to do not remember, some of y'all wouldn't remember, but anyway, they tried to do Wonder Woman way back before Linda Carter. They did Kathy Lee Crosby. She was blonde with a jumpsuit on and a parka. That ain't Wonder Woman. The reason we remember Chris Reeve so much is because Chris Reeve looked and acted like Superman had walked out of the pages of the comic. They got the look of Superman right, and they got the spirit of Superman right. So why do people keep trying to push this narrative that it doesn't matter? Yes, it does matter. It absolutely matters. I could do a whole video on that. I might one day. Sunspot, Roberto DaCosta, is dark-skinned. That's part of his backstory, part of the persecution he got for being dark-skinned. You can't make him light-skinned and make him be the same character. Arthur Curry, because Arthur was half human, half Atlantean, he had Caucasian skin, blonde hair, and blue eyes. Okay? And so he got rejected by the Atlanteans, which are blue-skinned, because he looked like a surface dweller. So you can't make him not look like that. That's a part of his story. On and on and on and on and on. And people keep thinking that it doesn't matter, but it does matter. So I heard some people say if there's any character you shouldn't race swap, it should be Snow White, which I tend to agree because it's part and parcel of who she is, how she looks. So for some people, they could get past that a little easier. And for some people, it was a big deal. But I always say it makes a huge difference. Chris Evans looks like Steve Rogers would look if he were real. Christopher Reeve looked like Superman would look if he were real. Linda Carter looked like Diana would look if she were real, and so did Gal Gadot. Notice that Linda Carter and Gal Gadot, they didn't have them be blonde or redhead Wonder Woman. I wonder why. Why is that? Because the characters have a certain look. And what's really funny to me is how they do it for side carriers or characters or B-list characters like Guy Gardner. Want to get that orange, that red hair bowl cut right. Really? But anyway, like I said, that's another thing. So that's another technical reason this movie didn't do well. Last one I'm going to talk about is that from everything that I've heard, it's boring. Okay, it doesn't catch your attention, doesn't grip your attention, doesn't hold your attention. Doesn't hold your attention. Now, conversely, a movie like The Matrix holds your attention to the last frame and through the credits. A movie like The Avengers holds your attention through the entire movie and through the credits. Okay, Aliens, my favorite movie of all time, holds your attention from the first frame all the way till the credits roll. So don't tell me it can't be done. People fell asleep in this film. People walked out of this film early. Doesn't grab you, doesn't grip you. Okay? So those are the technical reasons that the movie failed. But what I want to get to is the real reasons. And I want to identify for you once and for all so that you understand what you're looking at. And I want you to understand what you're looking at so that if you're a content creator, and I'm talking to myself as well, talking to me as well, so we can avoid it. Okay? Dave T. Keith is saying it's funny because Snow White is a German fairy tale. Yes. Rachel Zegler is half white with German ancestry. You would think she would talk about getting in touch with her German side. That would make more sense. See, so that's a great comment, Dave. Thanks. And so the next thing I want to put up there is play to your strengths. That's what she should have done. That's what the marketing for this movie should have been. Like Dave was just saying, if she's got any German in her at all, focus on that. Focus on that as to why you feel like you can bring this character to life. Her greatest strength is her singing voice. Focus on that. Play to your strengths. That's not what this movie did. Okay? So let's get into the real reasons that it failed. But I'm trying to build a big picture here. I'm not just talking about this movie. This movie, the title of this is that bad movies are just a symptom. This movie has become the face of everything that's wrong with entertainment today, but it's just a symptom. It unfortunately now has that legacy, but it's just a symptom. We want to put our finger on the actual problem so we can avoid it going forward, okay? Because this movie is the shining example and the biggest cautionary tale of the end result of wokeism. The end result of wokeism. Now, I've discovered that everybody doesn't have the same definition, or everybody doesn't know, and then have people come on my timeline trying to play crazy, whatever, those rage baiters. I ain't got time for rage baiters. Okay, what woke started out meaning, it meant stay woke, meaning don't be fooled by veiled threats, don't be fooled by propaganda, don't be fooled by people that are trying to be your friend, but they're really your enemy. Don't be fooled by any. That's what stay woke used to mean. Like, don't buy the hype, don't buy the lies, don't buy. That's what stay woke used to mean. That's not what it means now. The word has evolved. What it means now is specifically male bashing, girl bossing, hating of straight white men in particular, gender swapping, saying that the new character is better than the legacy character in every way, and saying that a character that hasn't earned their place in the story world is supposed to get the same amount of respect as the legacy character that built the story. That's what woke means now. Race swapping, gender swapping, orientation swapping, bashing males, bashing straight white men, girl bossing, and exalting new characters above the legacy character and trashing the legacy character. That's what woke means now. Okay, just in case it's not clear, just in case anybody wants to play crazy, just in case you don't know what I'm talking about, that's what woke means now. And this movie is the full culmination effect of the end result of wokeism. And what happens is that wokeism will always eat itself. So the first thing we're going to look at is the Peter Dinklage comments, but I'm actually going to look at some other actors talking about what his comments did to them. So hold on, let me pull that up. Okay. Okay, I want to make sure everybody can see that. Okay. All right, let's look at that.
Because right now there's more dwarves on this podcast than there are in the new Snow White movie. And that's probably due to Peter Dinklage.
Yep.
Me.
All Okay, now, if you're not familiar with what Peter Dinklage said, he said that it was a backward story. You know, he used a lot of profanity or whatever. It was a backward story about dwarves. And he couldn't believe that they were progressive enough to have a Latina play Snow White, but they were so backwards they would still make a story about dwarves living in a cave. I'm just going to have to take a minute to calm down. Know why I need to calm down? I'll tell you why. Because the dwarves don't live in a cave. The dwarves never lived in a cave. They lived in a house. That's where Whistle While You Work came from. The dwarves work in a cave because they're miners, not M-I-N-O-R-S, underage people, M-I-N-E-R-S, coal miners, people that work in a mine. That's who the 7 dwarves are. They don't live in a cave. They live in a house. Okay? That's where Whistle While You Work, that original song, comes from. It's Snow White cleaning up the house and having a good time singing while she's doing it. They don't live in a cave. So when I heard that, and then all of a sudden, that's when they started scrambling to replace the dwarves in the film with, first they replaced them because they said we can't have 7 white dwarves. So then they replaced them with the racially diverse magical creatures. Racially diverse magical creatures. Okay. So that picture broke. And then everybody thought that those were going to be the dwarves. And the truth of the matter was, those were going to be the dwarves. I'm trying to pull up a picture of that so you can see it. Okay, here, I'll use this one. Okay. Those were going to be the dwarves here. That right there. Those were going to be the dwarves. That was the original idea. I could have got a bigger picture, but anyway, that was the original idea. So Disney could have ignored his comments. That's right. So, but whatever he had to say, at least get your information right. Okay, it's not a backward story. They don't live in a cave. They never lived in a cave. But that one comment alone caused them to change to that. And then they changed from that to CGI dwarves. And everybody, and I mean everybody, says universally that the CGI dwarves were literally the worst part of the film. That picture I just showed you, the seven diverse, magically diverse people are actually in the movie, but they're bandits now. They're no longer dwarves. And everybody talks about how now it's 2 different stories mashed up in one. All from one comment. And I just don't understand how he's able to prosper and have a career, and then the door slams. He slams the door behind others, saying that's, and all of the dwarf actors said, we don't get a chance at many roles to begin with. So none of the dwarf actors said they would have minded playing these roles. But that one comment, and see, that's what I'm trying to get you to see. That's what wokeism has done to entertainment. Somebody makes one comment and people just fly all off the deep end. Does Peter Dinklage speak for all dwarf actors? Whatever ethnicity you are, is there one person that speaks for your entire ethnic group? I just want you to think about that. Whatever ethnicity you are, whatever your country of origin, whatever your family ancestry, whatever ethnic culture you've grown up with, is there one person that speaks for everybody? I know, since I'm African American and Native American, I know they try to say that for Black people and Indigenous people. I know they try to say that, but it's not true. I know it's always been that, you know, they will try to say that one Black person represents all, that one Black person speaks for all. It's not true. So I want to know, does Peter Dinklage speak for all dwarf actors? Apparently, they thought he did. They thought that if he was offended, that every dwarf actor would be offended and everybody would be offended. So they scrambled and they made it 10 times worse. Because, once again, wokeism says, because I noticed this when I was reviewing Wheel of Time. Al says the Dinkle is the dwarf king. When we were reviewing Wheel of Time, I noticed that what they try to tell you now is that people of all ethnicities all live in the same village all throughout time. Because we can no longer have villages where it was just white people, or villages where it was just, indigenous people or brown skinned people or whatever. Said that no, we have to literally rewrite history. So in every village there were, brown skin, light skin, there were Indians, there were both indigenous people, Native Americans, what we used to call, indigenous people, and there were people from India, and there were Africans, and there were African Americans, and there were Irish, and there was Swiss, and there was English, and there was French, and there was Hispanic, there was Puerto Ricans, there were Bolivians, there were Peruvians, there were Mexicans, there was some of everybody in every village all throughout time, because now we got to have some of everybody in every shot. That's the most ridiculous thing. That's so inorganic, it hurts. Of course, in every ethnic group, there is a spectrum of color. None so more true than with African Americans. African Americans, in terms of color, range from super, super, super dark, and Africans as well, but African and African American is the same thing. Super, super, super dark, super, super, super black, all the way up to pass for white. There's a full range of color palettes and color tropes in people that identify as African American. So we don't all look the same. We're not all the same color. But now they say that some of everybody has to be in every village, every town, every story. And in this movie, they only had one Asian person. I told you before, I grew up around a whole bunch of different people, so diversity is not new to me. Diversity was never a thing in my life. I've always had friends from all over the world. Since I was a little kid, I've always had friends from multiple ethnic backgrounds, so it is not news to me. But when it's inorganic, when it's forced, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense in so many of these contexts that you're seeing now. And then most of the time, when they mean diverse, they mean black. They mean swap out some of the white people for black people. You know what I always think when I see stuff like that? I always wonder, why do people think that black people and white people are the only people in the world? Don't you know that there are people that can trace their country's history back to biblical times? Do you understand that? I don't understand. I've never understood, and I still don't understand, even as I'm sitting here talking to you, why people think that black people and white people are the opposite of each other, why they think that turning white characters black fixes anything, why they think that giving a black character or white character's legacy or heritage somehow is a step up, or I don't understand that kind of thinking because I have never had it. I don't understand it. I don't understand why so-called white people and so-called black people are somehow regarded as the only people in the world. I just don't get it. So I always wonder when people that don't belong to either one of those ethnic groups, when they see stuff like that, what do they think? Japanese, Chinese, Vietnamese, Filipino, North Korean, South Korean, Southeast Asian, Indian, all the different types of, if you're Hispanic, that means Spanish is the primary language. If you're Latino or Latino, that means you're from Latin America. And there's some, that intersect and some that don't, like Brazil, where they speak Portuguese. But the point I'm trying to make is that there are all kinds of people in this world, and for some reason, I haven't figured out yet, they think swapping out white characters for black ones fixes something, or that's more diverse, or I don't get it. So maybe somebody can explain it in a satisfactory way to help me understand it. I don't get it. I'm like, have you ever taken a world civilization class? Have you ever traveled outside the country? Do you know other kinds of people? Do you know that everybody on this planet don't look the same, don't eat the same, don't vote the same, don't think the same, don't worship the same, don't have the same death rituals, don't have the same marriage structure, don't have the same type. Do you understand that there's 8 billion people on this planet? So I don't get it. Just tell me flat out, I don't get it. I've never gotten it. I don't get it. Okay? So, but that's what wokeism does. Somebody says one little thing and overturns the whole apple cart. And now Peter Dinklage is successful, but that comment ended up slamming the door behind him in this movie. And as the dwarf actor said, they don't get much opportunity anyway. So why cut off an opportunity for them to work? Why? Why? Everything that Jonathan Majors is going through right now doesn't represent all Black men, doesn't represent all Black actors. Whatever he's doing, he personally is responsible for that. That's not an indictment on Black men, even though a lot of people try to say that it is. That's not an indictment on Black actors, even though a lot of people try to say that it is. So I don't get it. But this is what wokeism does. You make one little comment and all of a sudden the whole thing unravels because Peter Dinklage says something about something that wasn't even true. It wasn't even true. The movie is not about nor based on dwarves living in a cave. It wasn't not true. It wasn't even true. And I've heard people argue when it comes to Lord of the Rings and World of Warcraft and Dungeons and Dragons about different fantasy characters, but they're fantasy characters. I'll probably have to do another video on that. But the point I'm trying to make is that I said this a long time ago, and I'm going to repeat it here. Wokeism is going to mean that nobody can be a character and nobody can be a villain. It's going to destroy every story. If you listen to somebody say, I'm offended because of this character, so we can't have this character, it's going to destroy every story because nobody's going to be able to be a villain anymore. I just want you to think about that. Okay? So the natural result of wokeism. And then we have probably the most famous and quotable disrespectful comments on an established IP that I've ever heard. And that would be Zegler and Godot, although Gal Gadot doesn't get the same heat. She also said she's not going to be saved by the prince. She said that too. But it's really more so Zegler's comments that have become the most quotable, most repeatable. I told you, this is her legacy now. She showed us who she was and we believed her the first time. Let's watch that clip right quick. You've seen it a million times already, I know. But just to refresh your memory, because I know you've seen this a million times. Here we go. You see all that? There's so much in that, so much she said in that. David saying that Godot didn't show open contempt for the original. That is true. Zegler did. But she said that, no longer 1937. That lie is going to stick to that girl for the rest of her life. No longer 1937. Because my father taught me you don't bash what your forefathers built, because you wouldn't have what you have if it wasn't for them. One more time. You don't bash what your foreparents built, because you wouldn't be who you are and you wouldn't have none of what you have if it weren't for them. You understand that? That's why you don't hear me bashing comic creators of the past. I know that people have this problem called Humanity in general has this problem called all or nothing. That is how people think. It's a shame, but it's the truth. What people think is that if you've ever done anything wrong, you don't have anything at all to offer. Nothing you've ever said was true. You can't be seriously. That's what was the birth of cancel culture. That if you're not perfect, you don't get a voice. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard of in my life, because nobody was perfect except the Lord. And that's another conversation. No human has ever been without sin or flaw or mistake. But human beings have this all or nothing mentality, which is why you don't hear me bashing the great creators of old, Stan Lee, Ditko. Everybody knows that how Bob Kane was, and he took all credit for Bill Finger's worth. And Bill Finger, we as fans had to fight along with Bill Finger's estate just to get him mentioned in any type of logo or credits with Batman. We know what went down there. Okay, we know who William Moulton Marston was, the man that created the lie detector, also created Wonder Woman. He was living with his wife and his girlfriend. Okay, so they were a throuple. Okay, so on and on and on. Carmine Infantino, so many of the greats, Jack Kirby, that's why you don't hear me bashing those men. I know those men were perfect. We wouldn't have nothing without them. Do you ever think about that? Did you ever think about we wouldn't have the comic lore, mythology, and content we have if they hadn't created it all those years ago? Siegel and Schuster, the creators of Superman. Did you ever think about, Jerry Ordway and just so many different creators? Did you ever think about how, my father taught me you don't be bashing people that are the only reason you got what you got. Again, speaking just to my culture alone, as African Americans, I wouldn't have been able to go to school like I did if it weren't for the Black people before me that suffered being attacked by dogs and fire hoses and being arrested and being beaten and everything that they took to get us the right to vote, to get us the right to drink from the same water fountain as white people, to give us the right to go to school unmolested. Them Black people suffered so I could have the life that I do. Why would I bash them? I don't understand. So when Zegler shows up, like Dave said, Godot didn't show contempt for the original, but Zegler did. She says, no longer 1937. What does that mean? What you know about 1937? This Snow White is the film that built Disney. Does everybody get that? This is the film that built Disney, so she wouldn't have a chance to play Snow White if there had been no Walt Disney creating the Snow White film. Plus, that original film was groundbreaking at the time. New technology. It was a form of animation people hadn't seen before. See, so we always have to start somewhere. I know people like to laugh when they look at old technology compared to today's technology, but you wouldn't have today's technology if they didn't do that first. Do you get that? Do you get that Bill Gates and Steve Jobs wouldn't have been able to say they were going to miniaturize computers if we didn't have big old computers that was as big as a room? We have to start somewhere. So, but that all or nothing thing and that not respecting your foreparents thing, I'm not down with that. My father taught me different from that. Okay, let's look at this right here. This is another famous one that's going to stick with this girl for the rest of her days. This right here.
You've told me before that your version of Snow White is different and it's more of a 2022 version of Snow White. What did you mean by that?
I mean, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
Very evidently so. Now, there she is again with that 1937. Bashing the forefathers' work.
There's a big focus on her love story.
As if there's something wrong with a love story, a traditional love story. There's a big focus, the implication there being that there's something wrong with that. What's wrong with that?
with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah. Weird.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
That's going to follow that girl for the rest of her life. Calling Prince Charming a stalker and weird. And I'm talking about if she lived to see old age, she won't be able to sit down for an interview and somebody's not talking to her about weird. That's a part of her now. And so let me hurry on because we're not out of time. Let me get to the three things I want you to understand. Because I want to put my finger right on the specific elements so that going forward, we can avoid them. I'm talking to me too, okay? Here's the first one I want you to see, because I want you to see what wokeism leads to. Because people love to jump on a bandwagon because something is new or because it's different. But you need to think about where's this going? First thing I want you to understand why Rachel Zegler is the way she is because of the participation trophy generation. If you don't know what that means, it means that it's when you get rewarded just for showing up. It means when you get an award and you came in last place. In a 13-person race, you came in 13th and they give you a trophy anyway because we don't want you to feel bad because we don't want to hurt your feelings. That's what that stuff I shared, that's what that looked like. When you raise somebody to think that you're just supposed to get what you get because you showed up. Because what movie has she starred in that's been a blockbuster or financial success? What has she done that has been a role that's brought in tens of millions, maybe hit the $1 billion mark? What has she done? Just in terms of her acting career, what has she done in her filmography? See, when you think you're supposed to get awarded just because you showed up, that's what makes you have all that attitude. That's what makes you have all that attitude. My father worked hard. My father worked hard all his life. My father worked after he got sick. And I watched him. I watched my daddy work 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, even after he got sick. So that's why I say all the time, I don't need Superman to be black. I had a hero. It was called my dad. They don't have to turn Superman black for me to be able to relate. Okay, but I know that's anecdotal. I'm not speaking for everyone. I know that. That's anecdotal. That's not general. I'm just telling you where I'm coming from. Okay, I can't speak about everybody's life, but I can speak about my life. My father didn't give me no participation trophy. My father made me work. From the time I was a little boy, he told me to work on my grades, and I'd have to bring him my report card at the end of every semester. I know that's old school, but that's where I grew up. I'd have to bring him my report card, and we would talk about it. My father made me work when he started his last business. The last thing he did before he died, I helped him start it. I helped him build it. I was there. I didn't get a participation trophy. I got a, what are you doing? Where's your work ethic? What do you have to show for all them years in school? That's what I got. But when you get a participation trophy, you think you deserve stuff just because you showed up. That's what feeds that attitude. That's why she has that attitude. That is what this looks like when you award people just for showing up and not for actual accomplishments. Number two, I'm putting my finger on the very things that this movie on Rachel Zegler has now become the face of. And I'm doing that so we can do better going forward. Next thing that I've been talking about all hour is disrespect. Let me tell you something about disrespectful people. Do you know why disrespectful people are disrespectful? I can almost guarantee you 99% of the time it's because they didn't build nothing. You got to build something with your life. I don't care what it is. A family, a child, a corporation, a network, a ministry, a financial portfolio, you got to build something. If you've ever built anything in your life, you will know the kind of work and sacrifice and blood and sweat and tears. That's why I have such great respect for Al, Common Crusaders, because Al works hard. Al's one of the hardest working men that I've ever met in my life. And I have known plenty of hardworking men. Al works hard at what he does. And I have great respect for him. And that's what I mean when I say people that are just disrespectful like that, you ain't never built nothing. You ain't never built nothing. Let me tell you something. You don't know what it takes to make a comic book until you try and make one. Making a comic book is a multi-stage process. And it's one of those things, like most creative things, where you have to get it all right. Because anything that you get wrong is going to jump out. It's going to knock people out of the story. Character development, plot, story twists and turns, but you actually have to get the page turns right. You got to know which pages to have certain reveals on. Illustrations, pencils, inks, colors, lettering, you have to get it all right. Editing, you have to get it all right. Movies are like that. Plays are like that. Books are like that. Comic books are like, you have to get it all right. Anything you don't get right, people will say, I read that book and I liked it, but there's this big section of exposition that was really boring. And they say the same thing about movies. You have to get it all right. You ain't never built nothing. That's why you're so disrespectful. Because if you had, you would say, I may not agree or I may not like the final product, but I sure do appreciate, what they put into it. I know what it took to make that happen. That's why you see so many comic fans going off on today's content, because it's obvious that the effort behind it is lazy. No research, no historical accuracy, and no respect for what has come before. Just lazy. And when you're disrespectful like that, you ain't never built nothing. I guarantee you. Guarantee you. Okay? And the final thing I want to point out, because again, today is I'm putting my finger on what this movie has come to represent. So this is not only a Snow White movie review. This is what it means. What it means. Okay? And the next thing, and last thing I'm going to talk about is values destruction. It's what I just talked about in her talking about no longer 1937, big focus on a love story, as if there's something wrong with that. She's not going to be saved by the prince, as if there's something wrong with that. And so when you have values destruction, that's what woke people do. We keep wondering why they hate Peter and Mary Jane together so much. We keep wondering why they hate Peter Parker so much in general, why they just can't let him be happy. You can't make the argument that it destroys the hero if they're married with a family, because there's too many other heroes that have been married. Reed and Sue, been married. Jay and Joan Garrett, the original Flash. They finally let Lois and Clark get married. On and on and on. There's too many examples of couples. My favorite example, of course, is Wally West and Linda Park. Their whole love story was one of the greatest love stories in comics. And, all the Flashes are married with children. And we know those children stretch out even into the future. Some of them are members of the Legion of Superheroes. But when you have wokeism, it results in values destruction. It says there's something wrong with the way this has been done in the past. Not we're taking a new angle, or we're going to build on, or maybe we're going to think we're going to improve it. You said, no. Oh, that's wrong. Oh, that's wrong. Focusing on love story. Having a woman having a love story. No. We can't have that. That's not. No, she got to be a girl boss. She's got to be a leader. Fearless, fair, brave, and true. That's what a life. She can't be both. She can't be those things and want to be in love. She can't be both. Is that it? So wokeism, again, to review, starts out with a participation trophy. You think you get rewarded just for showing up. Empties out into disrespect because you ain't ever built nothing. And it empties out into values destruction. And that's why the title of this live is I'm trying to find my title. I'm trying to put it up there. But anyway, it's that bad movies are just a symptom. 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 It's a symptom of all the stuff I just told you about. So going forward, what we want to do is we want to do better, because we have seen through this movie what it all leads to. So as content creators and as fans, we want to require more of our content. Because, I know people that make fun of comics and they make fun of superheroes and they make fun of people that love them and call us immature and losers and geeks and blah, blah, blah. I don't care about none of that, because comic IP is worth billions of dollars. Number one. Number two, what did you create? What did you make? Have you made anything? People can talk about George Lucas all they want to. He's a creative genius. What have you created on the level of Star Wars? So I don't care what the naysayers say. But we need to require more of ourselves as content creators and as fans. Bad movies are just a symptom of what I just told you. Participation trophies, disrespect, and values destruction. That's what needs to go. This movie has become the face, and this girl has become the face of everything I just said. And it's going to stay with her for the rest of her life. She's not going to be able to get away from it longest day she lives. So we need to learn from that and do better going forward. All right? That's my weekly live comics chat. I know I said a lot, but what else is new? So I'm on every Friday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. So you can watch me live. Thanks, everybody, for watching me live. I appreciate your comments. Thanks, everybody that's watching on replay. Leave me some comments below this video, because I know I said a lot for us to talk about, a lot for us to discuss, but I want to hear about it because we talk about it on Twitter all day, every day anyway. So definitely leave me some comments, all right? So I will be back next Friday, same time, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time for our next weekly live comic chat, where I talk about what is it in fandom that jumped out at me that week, okay? And I'll be back next week to talk about the same thing, because Lord knows what's going to happen in the week to come. We got a lot of stuff coming up. And I do eventually want to talk about Sadie Sink for sure. Okay. All right. Talk to you soon. Thanks for tuning in. DT2 Comics Chat out.